Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
Welcome. Today we're going to be exploring the answer to a question from Quizzypedia, Season 207, Question 12.
Arr.
Let's start with the category, the Industrial Revolution.
Okay. The question is, what is the name of the early industrial invention developed by James Hargreaves in the 1760s that revolutionized the textile industry by allowing one worker to spin multiple threads at once? This invention played a crucial role in the mechanization of the textile industry and helped to spark the Industrial Revolution in Britain.
And the answer is
The spinning jenny.
the spinning jenny.
Yeah.
It sounds simple.
It does,
Yeah.
but its impact was anything but simple. It really was revolutionary. What it allowed was for a single worker to operate multiple spindles all at once.
So that means,
Yeah, so you've got a huge increase in the amount of thread that can be produced.
and they can make a lot more textiles.
Exactly. Think about it. Early versions could spin like up to 8 threads simultaneously. Yeah. And then later models, they took this even further, spinning 80 or more. I mean, that's a massive leap from the single thread that you could spin on those old traditional spinning wheels.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
It really is.
So who came up with this?
Well, the man behind this invention, his name was James Hargreaves. He was a weaver and carpenter from Lancashire, England.
And how did he come up with this idea?
Well, there's this story, it might not be completely true, but it says that Hargreaves actually got his inspiration from his wife's spinning wheel.
Okay.
Yeah. So the story goes, it tipped over, but it kept spinning, even though it was lying on its side.
Huh.
Yeah, and that image, of multiple spindles all working at once, well, it just sparked his inventive mind.
That's very interesting.
It is.
So the spinning jenny's impact wasn't limited to just like making more thread.
No, not at all.
It really revolutionized textile production
Yeah.
by moving it from home-based, a manual process to a more mechanized factory-based system.
That's right. I mean, before the spinning jenny, most textile production was really just a cottage industry. It was individuals often working in their homes, operating single spinning wheels.
Right.
But this invention, you see, this made it so much more efficient and profitable to bring those workers together into factories. And in those factories, they could, manage multiple machines at once.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
From a business perspective.
Absolutely. This shift, though, from cottage to factory, well, this had a huge impact, on the social and economic landscape of Britain.
I can imagine. So let's talk about that impact
Okay.
in detail. One of the most significant changes had to be the reduction in production costs.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. With just one worker now able to produce so much more thread, well, the cost of producing each unit of yarn just plummeted. It means that textiles could be made much more affordably.
Okay.
And that benefits, well, it benefits everyone, right? The general population now had much easier access to clothing and other textile goods.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah,
But that makes sense.
it does, right?
It does. So this increased affordability, this must have led to a much higher demand, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that, in turn, led to this rapid growth of textile mills all across Britain. Factories were popping up everywhere just to try and meet that demand, both the demand domestically and internationally, too.
Interesting. So it wasn't just in Britain
No,
that this was affecting things.
it had a global reach. This surge in production, you see, it allowed the British textile industry to keep pace with the ever-growing demand for textiles, both within the country and for export abroad.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But like with most technological advancements, I imagine that the spinning jenny wasn't all positive.
Right. There are definitely drawbacks. It's important to think about both the positive and the negative consequences. So on the one hand, the growth of the factory system, this definitely created new job opportunities.
Okay.
But these new jobs, they were mainly concentrated in urban centers. Well, which meant that people started moving, right, from rural areas to cities. It's like a mass migration. And this huge shift in population, well, this contributed to the growth of those urban centers. And that's really what we see as the development of what we recognize today as modern industrial cities.
Yeah, big sense.
Yeah. And let's not forget about the social impact of increased textile accessibility. Because clothing became so much more affordable, well, this had a big ripple effect on fashion, on social norms. Even people with really modest incomes could now acquire items that in the past were seen as luxuries,
I see.
right?
It's interesting.
Yeah, and this accessibility, this played a role in the rise of a new middle class, a middle class that could now enjoy a higher standard of living. But, like we said, there was a darker side to this progress.
There always is.
Well, yeah. One consequence was the decline of those cottage industries, the ones we talked about earlier.
The ones who were home-based.
Exactly. As factory production just became more and more efficient and cost-effective, those traditional hand spinners, they really struggled to compete. These individuals who were working from home, they faced, significant job losses and real economic hardship.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a direct challenge to their way of life.
Yeah, they couldn't keep up.
They just couldn't. And this displacement, right, combined with these really rapid societal shifts brought on by industrialization, well, it all led to a lot of social unrest. You see examples of protests, even riots, as people are trying to figure out how to adapt to these new economic realities.
Yeah, that's understandable.
It is, right? It's a lot of change to deal with.
Yeah, it is. One of the most vivid examples of that unrest has to be the Luddite movement that emerged in the early 19th century.
Right. The Luddites were this group of English workers who were, well, they were fiercely opposed to the mechanization of the textile industry.
They didn't like these new machines.
No, they didn't. They saw machines like the spinning jenny as, as this direct threat to their jobs, their livelihoods, their entire way of life.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And so how did they respond?
Well, their response, it was pretty dramatic, even violent sometimes.
What did they do?
Well, they were known to, smash these machines, attack factories, anything they could to try and stop the progress of industrialization.
Must have been pretty terrifying.
It was. They were desperate to preserve their way of life,
Right.
against this force, this industrial force that they saw as destructive.
It makes sense, though.
Yeah, it does.
From their perspective.
It does. The Luddite movement, it serves as this stark reminder, of the human cost that often goes hand in hand with these big technological advancements, innovation. It can definitely lead to amazing societal benefits.
Right.
But we can't forget about those potential downsides.
The negative consequences.
Yeah, on individuals and communities.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the spinning jenny.
We have.
But it's important to remember
Yeah.
that it wasn't the only game in town.
No, not at all.
At that time, right?
Right.
It was part of this wave of innovation in the textile industry.
Absolutely. Take Richard Arkwright's water frame, for instance. That emerged right around the same time as the spinning jenny. And what it did was it harnessed the power of water.
The power of the machines.
Yeah, to spin, stronger, finer yarn, further boosting both efficiency and quality.
So this is another step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a little bit later, you've got Samuel Crompton's spinning mule.
What was that like?
The spinning mule, it was a fascinating invention. It took elements of both the spinning jenny and the water frame.
Okay.
Combine them.
Wow.
Yeah, and this clever fusion, well, it resulted in even finer and stronger yarn, pushing the limits of what was possible in textile manufacturing. Really incredible.
So all these inventions were influencing each other.
Yeah, they were building upon each other, each one contributing to the ever-increasing efficiency, and the sophistication of the textile industry.
But the spinning jenny was the first.
Yeah.
I guess it paved the way.
In a way, it did. The spinning jenny, it holds a very unique place in this history. It was relatively simple,
Okay.
pretty easy to use,
Mm-hmm.
and that made it really adaptable. Unlike the water frame, which needed to be near a water source to power the machinery, the spinning jenny, well, you could use it in smaller workshops, even in cottage industries, if you can imagine.
So it was more versatile.
It was. And this adaptability made it such a critical tool, a transitional tool in the shift, towards that large-scale factory production that we were talking about.
So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that James Hargreaves faced.
Sure.
With patents.
Okay.
And, protecting his invention.
Well, Hargreaves, he did secure a patent for the spinning jenny back in 1770. And this patent, this gave him those exclusive rights, right, to produce and sell his invention for 14 years.
That seems pretty good.
Yeah, on paper, it did.
Okay.
But, in practice, enforcing a patent like that, it turned out to be really difficult.
What do you mean?
Well, the spinning jenny, it was in such high demand, right, that all these unauthorized copies started appearing on the market.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was almost impossible to to track them all down and stop every single one of them.
So in a way, you could say that all of these unauthorized copies actually helped to spread the invention.
Yeah, you could. So, even if it wasn't authorized, this wide adoption, this actually contributed to the rapid mechanization of the textile industry.
It's kind of
Yeah.
ironic, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting paradox, It shows just how complex the relationship was between innovation, and those intellectual property rights.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got this rapid pace of technological diffusion during the Industrial Revolution. It's a theme, that we still see playing out today.
Yeah.
In many different ways.
Absolutely. Now, despite these challenges with the patent, the spinning jenny's legacy is undeniable.
It really is. It stands as this powerful symbol of the transformative power of innovation.
And its role in the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, absolutely.
Both in Britain and globally.
Yeah.
Can't be overstated.
You're right. The impact, it goes far beyond just the textile industry. I mean, it led to all these social and economic changes that are still shaping our world.
To this day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's a good reminder that these technological advancements, they can lead to progress, right?
Yeah.
But also disruption.
It's always a double-edged sword.
And a lot of times those two things happen at the same time.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see the benefits, in terms of efficiency, productivity, even better standards of living.
But then there's the people whose lives are, turned upside down.
Yeah, especially those whose livelihoods are just completely disrupted by these new technologies.
And how do you, deal with that?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Right. How do you make sure that the benefits of progress are shared fairly?
Right.
And how do you, soften the blow for the people who are losing out?
Absolutely. It's a challenge that needs, a lot of thought, a lot of planning, a really proactive approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this tension, it's still very present today, as we see automation and artificial intelligence reshaping the job market.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there are a lot of anxieties and concerns today that echo those of the spinning jenny era. And the lessons from that time, I think they can provide us with some really valuable insights as we navigate these new challenges.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so let's summarize some of the key takeaways from the spinning jenny's legacy.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, its impact on modern manufacturing and automation is, it's profound. The basic principles behind how it works, especially that idea of using a single power source to drive multiple spindles.
Right.
Well, that's still fundamental to so many manufacturing processes today.
That's pretty amazing.
It is, isn't it? Think about it. From textile mills to car factories, that core concept, right? Of mechanizing those repetitive tasks to increase efficiency. That has its roots in inventions like the spinning jenny.
I see.
Yeah. And we can see this echo in modern assembly lines and in automated production systems.
Everywhere, really.
Pretty much everywhere, yeah.
So what else?
Well, secondly, the story of the spinning jenny, it really highlights this tension, this ongoing tension, I should say, between technological advancements and the impact that they have on society.
Right, and we see that, like we talked about with the Luddites.
Yeah, exactly. The Luddite movement, with all those dramatic acts of resistance, well, that serves as this powerful reminder that progress, it often comes at a price.
Yeah.
And this is especially true for those, whose livelihoods are disrupted by new technologies. It raises all these questions, about how we handle those transitions, how we make sure that those benefits of progress are shared more fairly, and how we can lessen those negative consequences.
Yeah, cushion the blow a little bit.
Exactly, for those who are displaced.
Yeah, it's a tough balance.
It is.
To strike.
Yeah. It encourages us, to think carefully about, how we can encourage innovation, but at the same time address those potential downsides.
Right. How can we create a future where technological progress is beneficial for everyone, for society as a whole, and doesn't leave certain people behind?
Yeah, it's a big challenge.
It is a big challenge.
Yeah, it requires, a lot of careful thought, a lot of planning, and a really proactive approach.
Yeah. So finally, the spinning jenny, it really exemplifies how just one single invention can have this huge ripple effect throughout history.
It does. What starts out, as this simple solution to a very practical problem in one industry can end up triggering, this chain of events that transforms societies and economies, around the world.
It's
It's a
really,
testament, really, to human ingenuity,
yeah.
but also to how unpredictable
Mhm.
and often complex
Yeah.
the ways are that that innovation shapes the world around us.
That's a really good point. So as we wrap up our look at the spinning jenny today,
Yeah.
we wanted to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
What other inventions, throughout history have had that same, kind of dual impact,
A double-edged sword.
right? Both positive and negative on society. Think about the printing press,
Okay.
the steam engine,
Mm-hmm.
the automobile, the computer, the internet.
Yeah, good examples.
All these innovations, they brought about so much progress.
Yeah.
But there were also these unforeseen consequences.
There always are.
Yeah, and we encourage you to keep learning about the Industrial Revolution,
Yes.
and explore the long-lasting impacts
Mm-hmm.
of these inventions, how they've shaped the world we live in today, and what lessons we can learn from both their successes and their failures.
Absolutely. The spinning jenny, it's just one example of how even a simple idea
Mm-hmm.
can have these far-reaching and intricate effects
Mm-hmm.
on society, on the economy, on the whole course of history.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating story.
It is.
Uh,
And understanding those historical patterns, right? That can really help us navigate all the complexities
Yeah.
of innovation in our own time.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for joining us today for this deep dive into the spinning jenny.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.